So what I've observed in my work over 30, 40 years now, I work a lot with children with learning disabilities. I work with mental illnesses. I work with autoimmune illnesses, allergies, digestive disorders, and many other chronic illnesses in adults and children. And what I've observed that we have generations now of people with abnormal gut flora, with abnormal microbiome. And with every generation, that microbiome is getting more and more damaged in people, more damaging. And now with this is like an avalanche. This is like a tsunami on humanity. Every year, children that are born have more damaged microbiome, more damaged gut flora than the previous generation of children. And this is the epidemic of gaps. I'm the creator, I'm Dr. Campbell-McBride. I'm the creator of the concept of gaps, gut and psychology syndrome and gut and physiology syndrome. Gapster is a person with abnormal microbiome, with damaged gut flora. What happens to a person like that? And I say as children are getting born every year, and certainly every 5 years, we see a visible worsening in the constitution of these children, in their ability to withstand illnesses, to withstand infections, and in the rates of autism and hyperactivity and dyslexia and dyspraxia and mental illness in adults and children, autoimmune illnesses, allergies, asthma, eczema, atopy, all sorts of chronic illnesses in children and adults. Humanity, particularly in the Western world, is rapidly getting sicker and sicker. And larger and larger proportion of children is getting sick or born sick.
Yeah. Are they not correlating findings like laboratory findings with symptoms? Are they not putting these things together? Are they not kind of saying, look, we can measure the biome in the gut, and look, we've got these symptoms?
They are. There's a lot of about 10 years ago, Western science suddenly discovered microbiome, discovered that we've got some bacteria inside our digestive system.
Yeah, hot topic.
That knowledge existed already for 100 years, but Western science suddenly discovered it. And research is going very rapidly. A lot of research is being done. Hundreds of studies are coming out now correlating. So everything we were saying about that gut flora causes autism, gut flora causes hyperactivity, gut flora causes schizophrenia, gut flora causes rheumatoid arthritis, gut flora causes asthma, eczema, allergies, juvenile arthritis, and everything else. In the alternative field, we've been saying that for decades. And now there are hundreds of studies to confirm what we've been saying, produced by the Western science, So what happens to a person whose gut flora is damaged, abnormal? The harmony is gone, the balance is gone. Various microbes overgrow there and become pathogenic. The basis of every microbial community are fungi, and they always overgrow with the use of antibiotics in particular. Whether these antibiotics were given as a prescription to you by the doctor, or whether you're eating them with food in the form of agricultural chemicals. So the fungi always overgrow and they start dominating, but all sorts of bacteria overgrow and all sorts of viruses overgrow and protozoa and parasites and all kinds of things. So these sort of things in the digestive system damage the integrity of the gut wall.
Are they giving out a toxic?
Absolutely. They digest the food in their own way, their own sweet way, converting it into millions of poisons, downright poisonous chemicals. At the same time, they damage the integrity of the gut wall, making it porous and leaky. Holes develop in the gut wall. Literally, the gut wall becomes like a sieve. And all these poisons absorb. On top of that, food starts absorbing undigested. It doesn't get a chance to be digested properly before it absorbs. It absorbs in an undigested form. The immune system finds these poisons and finds this undigested food in the blood when it gets in there and tries to deal with them, launching inflammation, launching allergy, launching autoimmunity. So you start getting the activity of the immune system in the body. And wherever this river of toxicity, undigested food, alive microbes, and autoimmune immune complexes in the blood, wherever the blood carries that to, whichever organ all of this contaminates, you will develop symptoms.
Mhm.
So if that happens to a child, a small child in the first few years of life, and these things get into the brain of the child, the brain gets poisoned. And the child may develop autism, or may develop hyperactivity or attention deficit disorder without hyperactivity, dyslexia, dyspraxia, mutism, oppositional defiant disorder, any kind of mixture of symptoms.
Mhm.
All of these diagnostic boxes are purely descriptive. They don't include in themselves what actually causes the disorder. The
Yeah.
real diagnosis in all of these children is gaps. Gut and psychology syndrome, gut and physiology syndrome.
Mhm.
And because every human being is unique and has a unique gut flora, the mixture of toxins, the mixture of poisons, and undigested foods that are entering the bloodstream and affecting the brain of the child will be different, will be unique. Modern epidemic of autism that we have, and it is an absolute epidemic, and it's getting worse and worse year after year. We
Mhm.
now have some statistics that some states in the United States of America have 1 child in 15 diagnosed autistic. In some places, even 1 child in 7 now.
My
30 years ago, it was 1 child in 10,000.
Wow. That's
Now, if that's not an epidemic, I don't know what else can be caused an epidemic.
yeah. Yeah.
We have an absolute epidemic of ADHD. We have an absolute epidemic of attention deficit disorder, epidemic of diabetes type 1,
Mhm.
juvenile arthritis, asthma, eczema, allergies in children, and all kinds of illnesses, physical and mental in children. All of them are gaps.
Yeah.
All of them are due to that abnormal gut flora and the fact that the child gets poisoned by its own microbial community sitting in the gut.
Yeah. And so just from a practical point of view, you've seen on many occasions or every occasion that when they have improved the health of the gut, their symptoms go. Like, is it that obvious to you?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. Many, many symptoms disappear. We focus on healing and sealing the gut wall. So when that leak stops, when we heal and seal the gut wall in a person, food starts absorbing properly before it food starts digesting properly before it absorbs in a person. And as
Mhm.
a result, food allergies and intolerances disappear.
Yeah. And I think that's what people
Yeah.
notice first is the child is sensitive to a food. This might be one of the first things they notice is my child, I've had to cut out this, or they're intolerant of gluten, or I notice they can't drink milk, or it makes them behave strange. So it's often the first sign, isn't it?
Absolutely, because this milk is absorbing undigested.
Mm-hmm.
It's absorbing in the form of peptides, which in their structure are very similar to morphine and heroin.
Yes.
So this milk turns your child into a drug addict.
Mm-hmm.
The brain gets addicted to these opiates, which are manufactured by the microbes in the digestive system of the child out of milk. There are other opiates which are manufactured out of bread, pasta, anything made out of flour.
Mm-hmm.
There are opiates made out of other proteins because simply they don't get the chance to be digested properly, broken down properly.
Yeah.
So they absorb in the form of these 12 amino acid peptide chains, which in their own structure are morphines in their own way. So the child turns into a drug addict.
Mm.
At the same time, the fungi that I mentioned that overgrow in the digestive system of the person convert all sugars, all carbohydrates, and that's starch, sugar, fruit, fruit sugars, and anything, any carbohydrate, potatoes, any carbohydrate, they convert into alcohol. So there's alcohol being manufactured in the digestive system of the child constantly. So the child turns into an alcoholic. So your pretty adorable 2-year-old is a drug addict and an alcoholic.
Wow.
And all of that gets in, and it gets into the brain, and the brain gets addicted to these things
Yeah.
because they're addictive, they're highly addictive. So the brain wants more, and it demands, it starts dictating to the child, eat chocolate, eat sugar, eat breakfast cereals, eat bread, eat pasta, demand crisps, demand chips, demand sweet things, demand, sweet drinks and things like that, and don't eat any proper meals, because proper meals don't feed that alcoholism and drug addiction.
Yeah, I think that's a vital thing to understand. Like, we tend to think that the body knows best, or where there's an innate sort of knowing in our body, but it's really important to understand the opiate effect and I've forgotten about the alcoholic effect, driving the choices and the behavior of like what they would like to eat. That's
the child's body has been taken over by a demon.
Mm.
And that demon is the pathogenic microbes in the gut.
Mm-hmm.
They want sugar, they want flour, they want potatoes, they want all of these sweet, starchy things, not the child.
Yeah.
And they take over and they dictate to the brain, and the brain obeys, and the brain then demands that, and the child becomes a fussy eater. So, like any drug addict, like any alcoholic, they go through a withdrawal with children and adults. If you heal and seal the gut, if you change the microbial community, that river of toxicity coming from the gut to the brain stops. The child starts digesting food properly. So the food starts nourishing the child instead of poisoning the child, and the brain cleanses itself. My books describe the diet in great details. It's very complex. And it's based on traditional diets from all over the world, the way people used to eat for thousands of years.
Yeah. And there's a die-off effect as well. So is that right? There's not only the withdrawal of the leaky substances, opiates and the alcohol, but also there's die-off. So
there's die-off as well. Die-off is when we introduce fermented foods. In the diet, we use fermented foods extensively, because these foods introduce the good bacteria, the good microbes into the digestive system. And these good microbes start killing the bad ones. When these bodies die, they release toxins, because they all hold toxins in their bodies. And it's this release of toxicity can cause symptoms in its own right. And they can be new symptoms that the person didn't have before, or it can be worsening of your usual symptoms. That is why we introduce fermented foods gradually, starting from tiny amounts.
Like what do you incorporate to help worms and parasites, let's say?
Well, worms, parasites, and fungi I'll talk about separately. Worms and parasites are a normal part of our microbiome in the body. And some of them are 2 meters long, so you can't call them a microbe. They're very big. They can be very, very big. And they're a normal part. Everybody's got them.
Right.
They're normal. They're supposed to be in our bodies. And they have an amazing life cycle. The male and the female meet usually in the upper digestive system somewhere, in the duodenum, usually around the liver, in the duodenum. They mate, they lay eggs. The female lays eggs. Larva that hatches out of those eggs then burrows through the lining of the gut and starts traveling around the body, because it needs to spend different stages of its evolution, its development, in different organs of the body.
Wow.
And what was found through a very limited research, what was found that this larva, as it travels, it can spend a week in your liver, a week in your abdominal cavity, then a week in your spleen, sometime in your heart, sometime in your lungs, then go up in your brain, go up into your eyes, sit in there for a while. They go around like little hoovers, hoovering out toxins.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Toxic metals, mercury, lead, aluminium, various chemicals that we're exposed to in the environment. They're hoovers, they're little vacuum cleaners. And they go around hoovering these things up. What was found that when they've analyzed the body of a worm like that, a liver fluke, for example, and the surrounding tissue where it sat in the body, they found that body of a fluke had 100 times more mercury and lead in it than the surrounding tissue.
Wow.
They gobble these things up.
Wow.
And then when they're ready, when they get mature and they get close to the adult stage, they burrow through your lungs and climb up your breathing passages to finish up in your pharynx and get swallowed again to finish up in your digestive system, or they may burrow through the back of your pharynx. That's why people who have an infestation like that often have this dry cough, irritated dry cough, because the back of their throat gets irritated. They're burrowing through there. That's why, and it usually happens at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, typically. So they would burrow like that, and then they'll get swallowed. And they finish up again in the digestive system, where they mate, lay their eggs, and then the adults leave your body in the stool, taking that cargo of toxic metals and other toxicity that they've hoovered up out of your body. So they do us a good service. They're important. They're important to have. Trouble is, the more contaminated the body is, the more of them grow. The more of them are necessary, they overgrow. And if there's too many of them, they contaminate the body in their own right. They start causing trouble in their own right.
Right.
Because they make the gut lining leaky. They burrow through it back and forth, because many of them go out in the morning into the abdominal cavity where they sit. And then at 2 o'clock in the morning, they burrow back into the digestive system to have a good feed on your dinner.
Really? Oh my goodness. It's like a movie.
Like a movie, there's herds of them there going across the savannah. Yes. Your body is a planet. Your body is a magnificent planet, and all sorts of amazing things happen there. So they go back and forth and they make your gut lining leaky. And no matter what we do, they keep puncturing those holes. So in the GAPS nutritional protocol, after about a year of following the diet and restoring the microbial balance, depending on the symptoms, depending on what's happening to the person, we may do an antiparasitic treatment. We usually do the herbal treatment for people. We may use some medications as well, some pharmaceuticals for some particular situations, but it's a good idea to beat them down a little, because when there's too many of them, they can cause trouble. A lot of them live in the liver, particularly various flukes, and around in the bile ducts, and they can form stones in the bile ducts. When you have a bile stone, if you cut a bile stone in half and have a look at it under the microscope, you'll find a little fragment of a worm inside, or a fluke, or a crystal of toxic metals or some other toxicity that the liver could not neutralize itself, so it imprisoned it. It coated it with the bile and formed a little stone.
Yeah.
And initially, these stones are small and soft and pliable, and when we eat a high-fat meal, the liver capsule contracts and the stones get removed from the liver into the digestive system, and then they leave through your stool into the toilet. They leave your body. Trouble is, many people in this world live on a low-fat diet, following the mainstream propaganda. They follow low-fat diets. They're afraid of eating fats. And when you have too much toxicity in the body and too many flukes and too many parasites, there are far too many stones, and they accumulate in the liver. And the longer they sit there, the more calcium salts settle in their outer shell, and they become big and hard and rough, and they get stuck. And the liver can't remove them. And as a result, the bile stops flowing in this person. So they can't digest fats, because we can't digest fats without bile. And they become deficient in fats and deficient in fat-soluble vitamins, which are vital, very important for us to get every day, those vitamins. And many of these people get chronic constipation, because when we don't produce bile, we get constipated, chronically constipated. So in the GAPS nutritional protocol, we have a whole procedure, a whole system how to deal with that situation. So people remove these stones and the liver cleanses itself. And if the liver is blocked up with stones, it cannot filter your blood properly. So a lot of toxicity accumulates in your body. You build up toxins.
Yeah. Is that how because one of the behaviors that seem to be I'm seeing a lot is sort of anger and aggression. And the liver is often associated with, in energetic medicine. So I don't know, have you seen a correlation with that?
In autistic children, hyperactive children, and children with other learning disabilities and problems and mental illness, and adults as well. Their liver is full of stones. It's not producing bile, it's not able to filter the blood, so toxicity is building up in the body because the major filtering organ is not working. Fungi, they're at the basis of every microbial community in nature. We are full of them. They are normal. They're supposed to be in our bodies, including Candida. There are 200 varieties of Candida, species of Candida discovered so far. Maybe there are far more, they just haven't been discovered yet. And what happens, antibiotics, Candida and fungi are consumed, eaten by bacteria, lactobacilli, bifidobacteria, and other bacteria. These bacteria are extremely vulnerable to antibiotics, to glyphosate in particular. So if you buy your food exclusively in supermarket, you're killing off those bacteria. So there's nothing left in your microbiome to eat those fungi and control their growth. They will overgrow.
Right.
Overgrowth of fungi is always a consequence of exposure to antibiotics, whether you got them from the doctor or whether you got them from food.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the number one. Antibiotics are life-saving medications. Unfortunately, majority of prescriptions don't fit that description. They're prescribed like sweets for any cough and sneeze.
Okay, and the parasites, is that a general word for these worms and fungi, or is this something
That's
else?
a general word. They can be microscopic, they can be all kinds of sizes. So
Mhm.
worms and flukes and protozoa considered to be parasites as well. And Candida can be considered a parasite
Okay, right.
when it overgrows like that. And every GAPS person has overgrowth of Candida, overgrowth of worms and flukes and various other creatures in the body, because all of them are connected to toxicity, to chemicals, toxic metals such as mercury, and to chemicals from our environment. Our chemical industry now created more than 100,000 new chemicals which don't exist in nature.
Mm.
All of them are poisons. And the chemical industry is self-regulating, which means that nobody's regulating it.
Exactly. Yes. There's another system.
Outside its profits, outside its interests. So we live in a world, we live in a chemical soup. And people willingly use these things. Your dishwasher chemicals don't wash off the dishes and cutlery. You're eating it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's why your dishes are so sparkling, because they're covered in chemicals.
Mm-hmm.
Your laundry detergents, your personal care products, your cleaning chemicals in the house, your professional chemicals, anything people use in the garden, all of those sort of things. They're all toxic. And they all accumulate in the human body. And the higher your toxic level in the body, the higher the contamination, the more parasites and fungal overgrowth you will have.
But when things are balanced, we do have a natural detoxifying mechanism. It just has gone
Absolutely.
so awry that
Part of the GAPS nutritional protocol is detoxification.
Mm-hmm.
Changing your lifestyle, leading a chemical-free lifestyle as much as possible, dealing with electromagnetic pollution, dealing with toxic metals. So all of that needs to be dealt with.
Mm-hmm. Through diet? Because I know there's other methods.
There are other methods, and the diet is the basis of it, because what the diet will do, it will restore your own detox system in the body.
Mm-hmm.
Human body is equipped with a powerful detoxification system. Headquarters in the liver and departments in every cell of the body. And this system has ways of dealing with mercury and lead and other toxicity that our science hasn't even discovered yet.
The way people are brought up, it's tempting to go and say, well, can I not have something that gets rid of this? And can I not have probiotics that put the good bacteria back in? And as something that will take out the heavy metals. Like, it's tempting to go find all the solutions through.
There are no silver bullets.
Mm-hmm.
There are no easy solutions to make. We always have two choices in every situation in life, every second of our existence. We have two choices: the difficult one, the right one, and the easy one. And many people choose the easy. You can go to the doctor. The doctor will give you a pill to stop the pain, pill to stop the inflammation, pill to stop this symptom and that symptom. But it doesn't mean the disease is gone.
Mhm.
The symptoms are the way your body communicates to you that you're damaging it. By giving you pain, by giving you inflammation, by giving you discomfort and limitation of function. But if you suppress the pain and suppress the inflammation, you're telling the body to stop calling for help and suffer in silence. So the symptoms will be gone. You will not feel pain. You will not feel inflammation, but your body will continue getting destroyed.
Mhm.
And eventually the pills will stop working. And new pills will have to be tried, and higher doses will need to be tried. And eventually that disease will destroy you and put you through such suffering that you haven't planned for yourself, most definitely. So
Yeah.
that is the easy way of going to the mainstream doctor and getting pills. The right way is to work with your body, to listen to it, to listen to your spirit, and go through the experience of healing your body properly.
Mm.
That is hard work. There are no easy bullets. There is no just pill or supplement that you can take and continue with your merry life as you were before. You have to change your lifestyle completely. You have to change yourself. You have to grow as a spirit. You have to grow as a soul. You have to grow as a human being. You
Mhm.
have to change.
Which sort of is bringing to mind, you know, with when children are very much sort of innocent victims in a way of the environment that they're in, the food they're given, and like you say, the microbiome that's being inherited generation after generation, or the toxicity as well. That, you know, to bring focus to healing them, we need to heal everything, don't we? You know, we need to look at the environment, and we need to look at ourselves, our diet, what we buy. Yeah, there's a whole cascade. And like you say, you can't just
Absolutely.
point at the child and give them a probiotic. Maybe it's a bit too simplified.
Children come to us as teachers.
Mm-hmm.
We think we adults are so clever. We teach them. We teach them mundane things. But children teach us most profound universal truths. And it's been said that children pay for the mistakes of their parents. And unfortunately, that's absolutely true. And the parents feel the pain of those mistakes through the children,
Mm-hmm.
through the suffering of their children. Every parent who gets a child with a disability, with a serious illness, goes through a serious spiritual growth. And it seems that that's the only thing that gets to us very often.
Yeah.
To make us grow and make us to increase the vibration of our consciousness and hopefully become better human beings altogether. And the vast majority of chronic illnesses, even those that are considered to be genetic by our mainstream medicine, are curable.
Mm-hmm. I know.
I'm not getting this. Yes, I'm telling you this from my clinical experience. I had many children with Dravet syndrome, with other epilepsies, which are considered to be genetic. This new diagnostic labels coming out all the time, you know, appearing all the time, and many unpronounceable so-called genetic syndromes. And of course, when this kind of diagnosis is given to a child, it's usually the conclusion is there's nothing we can do. This is genetic kind of thing. We can only control symptoms a little bit. But then we go on the GAPS nutritional protocol and the child starts functioning and developing because of epigenetics. The science of epigenetics tells us that our genes are not our destiny. We are all born with a huge choice of genes, with a full choice of genes. Every one of us has genes to develop cancer or develop amyotrophic lateral sclerosis or develop psoriasis or develop anything. But it's the environment that you create inside your body and in your life, in your immediate environment, in your immediate life, that chooses which genes are going to be expressed and which genes are going to be sleeping forever.
Yeah.
So by changing your diet, by changing the way you think, your attitudes to life, the way you treat others, the way you treat animals, the way you treat our whole planet, your whole vibration, your behavior, your lifestyle, you are choosing your genetics.
Yeah. Yeah. So just say a massive thank you for giving people an avenue of hope and a protocol to follow, because I think that's so important that you've provided like step-by-step information and backed it up with your research and your knowledge, because people need to be sort of guided in the right direction. It's not general knowledge anymore, is it? You know, how to stay healthy. So, and yes, just hearing the stories of conditions changing, it should be a motivator for people to believe.
Absolutely. My first book has been translated into 27 languages, and more translations are coming.
Fantastic.
And other books are being translated. I'm not translating them. You know,
You're not
people,
fluent in 27 languages.
no, people in those countries
They
who
want
speak English, they read them in English, they use the protocol, they get results, and they get motivated to bring that information into their own countries. So they translate the book. They translate this information. There are literally millions of people around the world who are following this protocol. And that shows that that information is badly needed in the world.
And you say as well, you weren't inventing something. You weren't reinventing the wheel. It's based on lots of
traditional knowledge.
Using traditional knowledge and using diet for healing. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's delicious. The GAPS diet is delicious. You have to eat anyway, right? You have to feed your family anyway, so you might as well do it correctly.
Yes, exactly. And it becomes an integral part of good life.